So why don't we start with you? We'll start with you, Philip. We're doing the check-in now for the UN Decade Reparations Subcommittee meeting of Advancing Human Rights Committee. And Philip Cole, who is one of our national board members present, is going to give his check-in, and then we'll go to Alan Haber, and then we'll go to another national board member, George Friday, and then I, Teresa Elamine, who is acting as a convener of the subcommittee, will check in. So, Philip, please go.
Okay, well, I'm Philip Cole. I'm a member of the San Francisco branch, and the one good thing is that it is now 56 degrees where I sit, and I think that's a great thing compared to what's been happening around the world with everybody roasting. So I'm enjoying it.
Wow, I can't wait to get to San Francisco because it's 95 where I am. Go ahead, Alan. Thank you.
I'm Alan Haber. I'm from the Ann Arbor Ypsilanti branch, and I am in Burgundy, France, in a little village of 500 people in Odil's family house of 7 generations with 1666 carved in the roof beam. So it's another life altogether, but I keep in touch with the home front and am working toward the conjunction of International Day of Peace and the UN Climate Summit on September 2021.
Well, we are honored to have you here from talking to us from France. A great commitment. So George Friday, what's your latest?
Hi, everyone. George Friday here. I'm in the Southern Piedmont branch. These days I'm living in Shelby, North Carolina, which is even more south from Charlotte than Gastonia. And I'm bittersweet, not necessarily one good thing, but tomorrow morning I leave for 4 days in Wisconsin so that I can be part of a friend's memorial service. But I'm really glad to be here. This meeting is the highlight of my week.
Oh, wow, George. So our comrade George Martin is being memorialized this weekend.
Yes, Saturday. Saturday at 1 o'clock. It'll be 2 o'clock here. 1 o'clock there.
And you will leave tomorrow for that?
Yes, tomorrow morning.
Oh, wow. My good feelings will be with you. Well, I'm Teresa Elamine, and I'm in Columbus, Georgia, where we're baking here with very hot weather. And it's the Fannie Lou Hamer branch. And my major good thing on a personal note is that my landlord is trying to dispossess me, but they don't realize that I set them up for the dispossessory so we could get to court so I could do my counter complaint. They set a balloon cost to the 1 month of past due rent, which is normally $14.26. So they added a whole bunch of costs, late costs, eviction stuff. So the July rent is $1,887, and the August rent is $1,426. So I'm actually sitting out here in front of their office, which they're saying I can't come in, just drop it in the drop box. And I told them I would not accept their white supremacy and racism. I'm not going to be dropping 2 cashier's checks for $3,314 in the drop box. I'll walk it up to the door and somebody can take it from my hand. So I'm sitting outside their door doing the call, and my car is running with the air on. So I think we'll probably end up with an abbreviated meeting because Philip seems to be signed on twice. So there's only the four of us. And so, George, if you would help to move the agenda, what's the next item?
Sorry, I was muted. The next item is updates. What's the status in your city or state for reparations?
Oh, yeah, because California is doing such an amazing job. And I just found out that decolonizing wealth has given a big grant to that organization in San Jose, as well as in Culver. And they just put out an RFP, Philip. And so they're asking all the 501c3s out there who are working on reparations to apply. I'm sorry to be going on and on, but I know there's a lot going on in California. So if you could take about 5 minutes or up to 5 minutes, Philip, and tell us how things are going in California. Thank you.
Well, actually, I've only been following the newscast as of late because the reparations task force is wrapping up their work now. They've done their report, and it'll go before the legislature, and they'll look at it. And in San Francisco, the Board of Supervisors is also reviewing the report from the Human Rights Commission, who done a separate reparations, has a separate reparations task force. And of course, the sticking point in San Francisco is they want to award everybody eligible $5 million. And with the insane deficit that this city has, that's not going to happen. So basically, they're going to be looking at what practical implementations that they can actually put into practice right now. So they're going to have to set aside any monetary compensation. And so now they're looking at what is practical. And that'll be coming out of the Board of Supervisors probably in the next couple of months.
Well, that's very interesting. We will follow that closely. Alan, can you say how things are going in Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti?
Well, this is a highly controversial question, and I am in the minority to having the presumption to raise it when our progressive community is so good to everyone, and what is the problem anyhow? That's the statement of my own distress in our organizational disarray. I've been promoting that we should have a resolution on reparations as part of our bicentennial, which is 2024, corresponding with the end of the United Nations Decade for People of African Descent. There is a person who has developed a framework in terms of the local institutional structure, the courts and housing, employment, and so forth, looking at the institutional framework of the town and how discrimination and the consequences of slavery have played into the current disequilibrium and what is needed to correct things institutionally, which is different from the general sense if there's any reparations of a material sort that has to come from the federal government, because no one can actually deal with it locally, not even able to deal with its own situation. So there are sort of two threads of discussion going on. that hopefully will play out during the bicentennial year with Martin Luther King Day, that we have a program on, and coming then the Juneteenth, and we shall see how this all develops. But it's no one wants to talk about anything beyond we're all getting along well together.
Well, Alan, it's important when we're working on reparations that we have a team and some partnerships. And I know Ann Arbor is a pretty white place. I think Ypsilanti may be less so. So is this a bicentennial strictly for Ann Arbor, or is it also Ypsilanti?
Well, actually, the question as it is developed, Ypsilanti was formed a year before Ann Arbor, so this is its bicentennial year. And they are having some discussion, and Ypsilanti is much more an African-American centric town. It's where all the blacks have been put out of Ann Arbor to go across US 23 as it's described. And we also connected with Native American land back questions. And so these two basic repairs and reparations and restorations are going forward together. And I expect that
well, Alan, what you're not doing, Mr. SDS, what you're not doing is telling us what has been accomplished and what is the status. It's like you're working alone with this big idea, and you're not mentioning anyone else you're working with. So this is not work that can be done alone. So exactly who are you working with in Ann Arbor?
The principal person I hope I am working with, if he is willing to work on this question, is LaRon Williams, who is a storyteller and a very knowledgeable person who has been working on the institutional analysis toward reparations. And the NAACP with whom I have spoken is basically not interested in this question.
Okay, well, thank you, Alan, because I think we can shorten the meeting today. But I would like to report, yeah, you can mute yourself, Alan, because I will report on what's going on in Columbus, because I really liked your idea of the bicentennial. Well, Columbus, Georgia was founded in 1828. So its bicentennial is coming up in 2028. So those of us working here through the Fannie Lou Hamer branch have decided that it's a 5-year plan to get people woke and to get people thinking about the Evanston, Illinois reparations ordinance in particular, which is focused on housing. So we're connecting the idea of reparations for housing just as we build towards the bicentennial. And the discussion that's taking place is the importance of cash payments. But what I realize is in the next 5 years, because there's so much activity around the US, that there'll be so many reparations ordinances passed that we will be closer to HR 40 at the federal level, where the real cash payments are going to come from, because we'll say no more money for war and the war machine budget, and money for reparations. So that's the 5-year outlook that I'm working on. So I'll be turning 80 years old in the same year, 2028, which is when I'm going to be ready to really slow down. So that's the strategy that I put together. So even though the UN decade ends next year, and this committee, the proposal, which we can discuss at the next meeting, is for this committee. At the end of the decade, we will drop UN decade and we'll just become the reparations working group, because I think advancing human rights is going to stop calling these things subcommittees, is what I hope we'll discuss when we meet again, and start calling these various subcommittees actually working groups. So I will let George speak on what's happening with reparations in the Southern Piedmont area, particularly Charlotte, and also to say what she thinks about my comment on moving from subcommittee to working group. You're on, George.
Yes, definitely a thumbs up on working groups, and we will discuss that and get specifics at the next program committee meeting later this month. But in North Carolina, there are several cities that have initiated or established reparations, but none that have implemented it. Asheville, at least 3 years ago, Durham, 2 years ago in 2021. Asheville allocated $2.1 million, and they have a commission that's meeting every month to decide what the rollout of that looks like. And in Durham, they haven't made any steps towards implementation either, even though they set aside in the budget $6 million. In Guilford County, which is where Greensboro and Winston-Salem are, they've started a commission to study the effects of reparations. And in Mecklenburg County, where most of the Southern Piedmont branch members are, two partners have gotten together, Reimagining America project and a project that focuses on voter protection called All on the Line, are starting to do the same kind of research on past grievances in Mecklenburg County that folks in Guilford County are doing. And that's where things are in my area.
I wanted to add, in
Hold on,
Washtenaw
Alan.
County, they have actually established a reparations task force. It has not come into function yet. So there is an official process going on in the county.
Oh, well, is that Ann Arbor?
Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti, Washtenaw County. And I have talked to the chairperson of the county commission working on this, but it has not begun to function as yet.
Oh, well, it's good because George just set an interesting pace for talking about statewide, because in Georgia, Atlanta has put $250,000 into a study committee, and the person who chairs that spoke at the Fannie Lou Hamer branch second anniversary on March 18th of this year, and it is just some more petty bourgeois stuff that makes no sense at all. And in DeKalb County, Georgia, they're actively working. So there are lots of pockets around the state of Georgia where people are working. And I'm driving to Albany, Georgia, and to Valdosta, Georgia, where there are two other members of the Fannie Lou Hamer branch. And they're also board members of the Southern Anti-Racism Network. And we will be discussing what the Human Rights Conference for the Fannie Lou Hamer branch will look like in December, with a focus on reparations. And so because we want to make sure that we continue this approach with the UN decade. So George, what's the next item on the agenda?
It's to discuss the UN decade, no NATO tour of the Northeast.
Oh,
Tracy
okay, good.
Robbins joined us.
Oh, who did?
Hello, how is everyone?
Oh, hi, Tracy. Well,
Hi.
Tracy, since you're our newest member of Will, we're gonna pause here so you can introduce yourself. Thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, my name is Tracy Robbins. I'm an advocate for the people. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina via Brooklyn, New York.
Yeah, and
These
we
are
need,
the parents that grew up in the Jim Crow era. And so I'm very, very interested to be here.
Well, I'm getting ready to do an update, a quick update on the UN Decade Reparations, No to NATO Northeast Solidarity Tour, which gets underway next week. The first stop will be DC on August 8th, and hopefully all of you have seen the flyer. I know Alan has and George has, and I trust George has sent it out to all the members of the Piedmont branch. If you haven't, George, you should make sure that Tracy gets it, because if she knows people in Brooklyn, she could share that with a New York City organizer who is listed on the flyer, because we're trying to get a bunch of New Yorkers to the event on August 10th, which will be at the St. Mary's Episcopal Church in Harlem. And on the 9th, the Greater Philadelphia branch will be hosting the tour stop at a Friends Meeting Quaker house. And then we'll go from DC to Philly to New York, and then I will go to Rhode Island to hang out, to work on building the Rhode Island branch, which will be a new branch. And while I'm there, I will do a Zoom stop with the Rochester, Vermont annual gathering, which is August 13th. And then I'll keep hanging out in Rhode Island until the final stop of the tour, which will be Boston. And that is very well organized, my Massachusetts Peace Action. And so the Boston branch has endorsed, and so Eileen Kurkowski will be speaking, possibly both she and Virginia will both be speaking. We all will be given 10 minutes at each stop of the tour. And so that's going to be great. And the idea is that all the in-person stops, we will be recruiting to Will, including at the places where there's no branch yet. And so Sheila Harper in Greater Philadelphia, she's going to pick me up at my hotel, and we're going to go and have coffee before the tour stop at 6 o'clock at the Friends meeting. And of course, the DMV branch folks, they're real excited. So SARN is paying for this whole tour. So this is actually strictly a Southern Anti-Racism Network project that is collaborating with the branches who are listed where there are branches. And that's only in terms of the tour stops. That's DC, Greater Philadelphia, Burlington, and Boston. So those are the 4 branches that have agreed to endorse and participate. And so the tour ends on August 15th. And so that's the update. Are there any questions about the tour? Well, hearing none, let's move on to the next item, George.
The next
Sounds
item is discussion about Midwest and West tours in 2024.
Well, that is important. So the Southern Anti-Racism Network is committed to doing regional tours until the end of the decade. And so we hope that for the Midwest tour, that Wilf would be willing to collaborate as a national co-sponsor of the tour. If Wilf declines, SARN will probably still go forward because we have strong relationships in Pittsburgh, in Cleveland, in Detroit, and we have Allen in Ann Arbor. So we definitely make sure if Allen and the branch are willing, we definitely go by Ann Arbor. And then we'll go on to Chicago, where SARN has strong relationships, and we'll go to Milwaukee, and then we'll go to Madison, where SARN has strong relationships. And then we'll make the final stop Minneapolis. So the final stop will be close to the start of the triennial, which, as I understand it, the proposal for the triennial is the end of May into June 2nd. So I'll probably hang out in Minneapolis, and then somebody from the Fannie Lou Hamer branch will join me in Minneapolis, so that we have at least 2 representatives from the Fannie Lou Hamer branch at the in-person triennial. So George will motivate the proposal for co-sponsorship at the next board meeting, which I believe is in September. Are there any questions about the Midwest proposal that we're asking to be considered? Please speak, Philip, George, and Alan.
I didn't get all the cities that you talked about: Pittsburgh, Ann Arbor, Detroit, and then on to Chicago, Milwaukee, Madison, Minneapolis. What besides, there were a couple other branches in the Midwest area that I think.
Well, Alan, there's been a lot of brouhaha about this. So there is, the branches can decide what they want to do as the tour stops are organized, like they've done for the Northeast tour. But the president of Will has taken a particular position about what SARN has done with the Northeast tour. So it would require board approval for us to start talking about partnerships. So it'll be a dynamic debate inside of the organization, but SARN will be going forward as SARN, but we would like to do it with Will. So the floor is open for comments, particularly from Philip, since he's a national board member at large.
Well, it seems like a good idea. It would be helpful if the Midwest.
Well, Alan, I want Philip to say something if he has anything, and if not, Alan, then we'll go to you. But Philip, do you have anything to add?
I have no comment on this subject. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, Alan, what were you saying?
Well, I think it's a good idea to have you or you and a team pass through the various branches in the Midwest, ending up at the Congress. And I was just wondering what ones that you particularly had in mind, if there was anything besides Ann Arbor, Detroit, and Pittsburgh. I didn't hear.
Alan, I sent you an email earlier, and I listed all of the cities that are under consideration. So you can look at that later.
No problem. So I think
Good.
I think it's a good idea, and as we see what the timing is, I'm sure that Detroit and Ann Arbor will get together with us.
Well, it'll be in late May. And so we'll get started 10 days ahead of the start of the triennial, because it'll take about 10 days to get from Pittsburgh to Minneapolis, because this tour is taking about a week, but the tour for the Midwest will be bigger, because it's going to hit more cities. I believe it's like 8 cities involved, and they're all cities where Soren has strong relationships, because I lived and worked in the Midwest for 5 years, and I was based out of Cleveland. So I have a lot of contacts in Cleveland, and I worked in Detroit for a while. So I have good contacts in Detroit. And so I'm doing what I could do with the relationships that Soren had, because we're committed to the UN decade. And so the idea, Philip, is that in the early fall of 2024, like around September, we would do a West Coast tour. I have some contacts in Seattle and in Portland, which may be an opportunity to restart those branches, which went dark. But most of my contacts on the West Coast are in the Bay Area. So we would be able to do something strong in the Bay Area. And then I know that there's someone in Fresno who expressed interest. So we may be able to do a stop in Fresno. And then Gloria McMillan, who is in Arizona, she might be willing to put something together with Emily Ricketts, who is a woman of African descent and very active in Arizona. I believe they're in the Phoenix, Arizona area. So that's the plan. So in terms of tours next year, but we'll discuss it more at the meeting in September. So what's next on the agenda, George? We're doing pretty good on time. George, I really
Yes.
need you to
Next
speak up,
is-
because
Next is for us to discuss a regular meeting time.
oh, good, because my phone is going to die very soon. So my proposal is for us to meet on the first Thursday of each month, which today is the first Thursday of August. So can anybody look at their calendar and see what the first Thursday in September would be? If it's not the first Thursday, it could be the second Thursday or the third Thursday. What we've tried to do is avoid meetings that conflict with possibly other committee meetings. And the EMIDP meeting is on the first Monday of the month. So that's my proposal, that we make this consistently our meeting slot, the first Thursday of the month. So
The first
George, what is
Thursday
the
in
first?
September is September 7th.
Great. Are there any objections to us tentatively declaring September 7th as our next UN Decade Reparations meeting? Yeah, because it will be before the board meeting. So George, what is the date of the national board meeting in September?
I have to look on my calendar. Hold on. It
Yeah,
is-
because once we meet on the first Thursday, we can help support George by showing up at the national board meeting.
It's the 19th or the 26th, but there was an email last week about changing the date. So I need to confirm which of those it is. Philip, do you know whether it's the 19th or the 26th?
Nothing has been confirmed that you're debating on changing.
Okay, thanks.
Oh, good. Well, at least we can block out those 2 Saturdays. So one is always at 1 p.m. Eastern. Is that the deal?
Yes.
Okay, well, let's mark our calendars to support George making the proposal for support for the Midwest tour for the UN Decade, because we do need to know who our partners are now so that we start building it. Because trust me, it takes really a good year to build it, and we will have to do it in less than a year for the Midwest tour. So thank you. If there's no other business before the UN Decade Reparations Subcommittee, we could end in what amounts to less than 45 minutes. Is there any unreadiness to end the meeting now?
But I definitely need to speak to you, Ms. Teresa. Tried last time, but somehow we didn't get a chance to chat in the other meeting. That's all I want to say.
Well, Tracy,
Yes,
I
ma'am.
gave you my phone number and I have your phone number. So the best way for us to chat is one-on-one when you call me,
Okay.
because you have my number.
I had your number, but I don't have it anymore.
Well, I still have your number. You sent me a text message. So look at your
Did
text
I?
message.
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
'Cause
That's what the
yeah.
problem is, because of my phone. I was at a meeting for the I'm precinct chair 147 and I lost my phone.
Oh no. Well, George knows it. And so I have your number. So I will contact you.
Please do. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you, Tracy. I'm glad to talk to you. So everybody have a nice rest of your afternoon. I'm going to deal with my landlord and see what evil they'll try to do to me. So I will talk to y'all when I see you, because I'll be on the tour next week. And so I'm going to be seeing a lot of WILF members next week. So have a good afternoon. Thank you so much for attending the meeting.
Happy
And George,
travels.
thank you.
Have a-
George, you and
have
I.
a great tour, Teresa. Have a great tour.
Thank you, George. You and I are going to be talking later.
Okay,
George, you and I are going to be talking later.
no problem.
And so
I'm here.
I'll be sure to save the recording
Okay,
so that it can be sent out to all the
yes,
people
indeed.
who registered and to be sent out to the branches list if that's allowed.
Okay. Take care, everyone.
Okay, love you.
Bye.
Bye now.
Okay.